Hey, this is Sundance DiGiovanni, CEO of MLG, and you're listening to VVV's The Losers Bracket.
Can't stop the train, baby. Woo!
Round 47 of VVV Gaming's The Losers Bracket, and we have a special guest for you today that's going to blow your mind. We have someone that is taking some time out of their Christmas week to share some time with us and give some amazing news of what's going on in their league. So this is, of course, the CEO of MLG, Sundance DiGiovanni, making a return to the show. Sundance, welcome back. How are you doing today, sir?
Great. Good to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure having you on, and we're really excited to talk about all the really cool MLG news that's coming out, so we'll get to that in just a second. But first, how have things been since the last time you were on the show?
Good. Been busy, but very, very good. Obviously closed out the season and in our planning mode and just getting ready to unleash 2011.
Before we jump to 2011, overall, how was 2010 season? I saw some lesson learned from the Combine, but it seemed like by the time MLG DC rolled around, with the transition in May to you being sort of back in front and center, some changes were made, and it looked like you guys finished strong. Give us a quick overview.
So obviously, this year was an ambitious year for us. The cornerstone of the Doritos relationship was the Combines. And when I got into a position where I was taking over the company in May, from the previous CEO, one of the things that I had noticed was we had made a couple of tactical mistakes, opening the season up in Orlando at a suboptimal venue right after being there for the championship in Orlando. Didn't help out, in terms of how we started the year. And I think the cadence of the events between the Combines to the pro circuits was a little bit rough. And, for some folks, it became a question of why attend a Combine, or even pulled some people away from the pro circuit events. And then, of course, the scheduled release of Halo Reach being pushed up forced us to make some changes and finish the season a little bit differently and change and create a combined event for our final event, DC, on the Combine side, with DC becoming a pro circuit event. So there was a lot that happened. It was a grind, and the community was great throughout it all. And obviously my staff bared with me and bared with some of the growing pains. But by the end, as you saw in Dallas, and just by the fact that we closed out so strong, I think we made the right decisions. Some of them were difficult, but in the end, we feel like we made the best out of that scenario, and we learned a lot along the way, which you're going to see come into play in 2011. So I'll be honest with you, it was a grueling season, a grueling year, but very rewarding at the same time, especially because, I can sit here at the end and say that after taking over, I guided us to where we wanted to be for the end of the year.
Yeah, well, it seems that other people have agreed with that, because it appears that you have been able to secure an additional $10 million in funding. So congratulations. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Oh, thank you. So, the money comes from Legion Enterprises as well as Oak. And there's an option we may increase and bring Richie, who's our initial investor way back in the day, into this round. But, my good friend and business partner and co-founder here at MLG, Mike Sepso, went and started Legion, and conversation started towards the end of the summer about some opportunities that presented themselves for 2011. We've been in a scenario here at MLG where we've been doing a lot of things the same for a few years, and we've had great growth, and we've had the community doing good things, but there was really some opportunities that were missed, I think, by the direction that the company had been led in. So one of the things that you find yourself thinking about when you're being cautious with your cash flow and you're trying to manage a business is, well, what would I do differently if I didn't have to worry about money? And when opportunities arise where you have the ability to invest in something to accelerate growth in a very focused way, if you have the opportunity to go out and get some capital, it's always a good idea to do so. So we were able to. We went out, we got some more capital. The terms were good. We saw folks that we know. And so we were able to pull that deal together actually in a very short period of time. Essentially what we did was we gathered everybody together, said, here's what we'd like to do. Here's what we want to spend it on. here's our thinking. And a big tip of the hat to Mike Sepso and to the folks at Oak and Richie for facilitating that happening in a very short period of time. It's a good way to end the year.
It sure is. $10 million is not bad for any organization, especially as investors are coming back, but it's still slow. So, I mean, I think that's both a credit to you and Legion, and as well as hopefully to whoever's giving them the insight on how competitive gaming is growing here, which I think is a great opportunity for the investors. So 2011, this is the year of change, the year of big things. Why don't we start out by talking a little bit about the big community questions. Reach, StarCraft 2, I think everybody knows that they can expect that back. And it's my understanding that StarCraft 2 will definitely not be sort of roped off. We may see a little bit more StarCraft 2 front and center. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that, as I said, we've been doing things the same way for quite some time, rinse and repeat. So for us, looking at StarCraft, looking at a game of that magnitude, we want to get that front and center. We want to give it its rightful place alongside Halo. We've been accused by different folks, different communities, of being a Halo league and everything else falling secondary to that. So my goal is to level the playing field a bit. The long-term goal is to have everything be balanced out and to be something where if you say a game's on the pro circuit, you've got the same media coverage, the same player profiling, the same content being created around that game, same amount of matches being broadcast and the same quality from the live event. So the folks at Activision Blizzard and Microsoft are very supportive of that. And so that's one of the things that you're going to be seeing us invest in a little bit for next year is to get that stuff leveled out and to put on the best show possible.
So I want to ask what's on everyone's mind, and that is Black Ops. I got to tell you, the last time we spoke, you were optimistic. People have been watching your Twitter feed. It seems to me that, what I tell people is I probably would expect it on the PlayStation 3. Sony's been good to you. Share a little. Tell us. Come on. What should we know?
So, we're almost there. I know it's the thing that's on everybody's mind.
To be clear, almost there on the PlayStation 3, right?
Almost there on the PlayStation 3.
He said it now. You guys heard it. So stop asking me if it's going to end up on a 360. Tell us why the PlayStation 3 right. Sundance. So there's good reasons, right?
Oh, there's great reasons. I mean, people keep yelling and verbally abusing me on Twitter and whatnot. But if Sony and Activision come to me and say, here, we're going to support you with, a few $100,000 in prize money if you run it on this platform, what am I going to say? No. The knock is, like I said, I want to get whatever games we're running on a level where they're comparable to what we do for Halo. If you look at historically what we offered for prize money for games like Modern Warfare 2 or for Gears of War, it was fractional compared to what we did with Halo. And I'm not saying that we're going to get all the way there, but by getting a subsidy of that size around prize money and around event labor and content creation, it's going to afford me the opportunity to add the game in the way that I want to. So it's a good thing. I know that people who maybe have a console preference for that game may be upset, but at the end of the day, support for competitive gaming is not a bad thing. If in a perfect world, money wouldn't be an issue, but it's not a perfect world. Money is an issue, and it's either that or we don't run the game. It's that simple. Even though I just brought in $10 million, guess what? That money's not for me to increase prize money towards a game and subsidize the whole thing myself. That's for me to make the business profitable. And the way I'm going to do that is by listening to both the community and to my partners. And the fact of it is that enough folks within the community who've actually tried the game on that console and pros who converted for what we did this year have told me that, you know what, if you put it there, we'll follow. We just want to play that game. So I'm doing what I can to make that happen.
No, I think that's fair. I think anyone who listens, although they may be disappointed, I think that not having Black Ops would be worse. Now, to be fair, there is one more hurdle. Can you talk about what the hurdle might deal with?
So the game, historically, the issue with Call of Duty titles, there's some technical limitations for us. And, I know people always think they've got all the answers for it, but to run something at scale where you could have capacity for couple of hundred teams over the course of an event weekend without having to go crazy with labor and staffing issues. We need certain things just built into the game that afford us the opportunity to run these things on LAN. And, so that requires some changes to the game. Now, in years past, one of the pushbacks that we would often get from developers is that, well, that's great, but the competitive gaming community is a small sliver of the audience we're going after. And, I understand that they're looking at trying to sell millions of units, but it's always been our belief that by understanding and catering to the expectations of the competitive community, you'll create a product that'll be more enjoyable to the mass audiences. Well, we've made progress there. Obviously, we've made progress there. We're working with Treyarch. We're working with the folks who can patch the game for us, and things are looking good. Again, a couple more hurdles, but right now, as it stands, I feel good about the chances for the game to be at events, live, on the floor, produced in a manner similar to what you're going to see for both Halo and StarCraft 2.
That sounds awesome. But I've got a question. You had mentioned your Twitter before about people, saying things to you, and you had just recently mentioned something on your Twitter about events coming in the next year that I thought was pretty interesting. And I was wondering if you could go into some details about this. You were talking about having throwback titles at some of the events that are coming up next year. Could you possibly go into some of the things you're thinking about to add into these events, maybe what games you're thinking of running and how these events would work?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be figured out. And, Adam Apicella, who you guys have spoken to recently, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to what his group feels is the most manageable thing. But again, in a perfect world, which we do not live in, but in a perfect world, what I would like to do is I would like to select a few games that we are committed to running and then provide the opportunity for the communities, both the MLG community, the VVV community, competitive gaming communities in general, maybe even some communities around some games that you haven't seen run traditionally by Major League Gaming, to have an opportunity to voice their thoughts and their feelings on it, and to maybe pick some of the games that are going to make their way into these throwbacks. Now, one scenario, perhaps you see a different game at each stop, and another scenario, maybe you see a game making repeat appearances because there's such a demand for it. We've talked about games such as Gears of War. Not 2, Gears of War 1. Halo 2 was something that some people had asked for. Even Halo CE, although I kind of doubt we'll get into the throwback machine just because of the hardware concerns there. But we've had some questions from the folks at Activision about DJ Hero. We want to try and make these things be enjoyable, make them be fun, and try and schedule it in a way so that people can participate. And, expecting that maybe some people will come out to the event just for that, but that some people would like to do that as well as whatever primary game they're competing in. So, it's a work in progress, and the League Ops guys are putting some time in there and thinking about different ways that we could seed that stuff and give the community, more activities at the events. But again, there's so many great games out there that maybe, you can't get the support for a full season, but that if you have a one-off event around, maybe it could become an annual thing where a certain city is known for hosting a certain game. We're excited about it. I think it's something that the community, should take a hand in crafting. But again, at the end of the day, I'm sure everyone's going to have their game that they'd love to see, but what it's going to come down to is whether or not it can be run effectively and, it'll work on scale. But we're excited to dive into it.
I'm sure right now the people that are fans of Gears of War 1, people that are DJ Hero fans, are hanging on your every word. And so there'll be a community input portion. Let's say it's part of an overall grade. Obviously, the technical aspects and other things. What can they do to maximize their input? What are the kind of things that will influence yourself and the MLG crew to say, we really should bring this game on board because these factors are good and the community did things like this? What would the things like this be?
Well, I think, number one, when they hear this, don't go and say, DJ Hero's stupid, Gears is the shit. Let's have a dialogue about it. Let's talk about it, because what it comes down to for us is that we are wide open. I mean, League of Legends has been discussed. People have been pushing for us to do stuff with Quake and supportive of that. So it's really, it's open season. Although I will say this, we're not going to be doing anything around Counter-Strike. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
Oh, what a shame. Let me more on that for about 5 seconds.
Well, no,
that's such a visually appealing game. How can you not think of people being riveted to those graphics? What are you talking about? All right, I digress. Go ahead.
All right, but I'm going to get asked this. But by mentioning League of Legends, my point is that it can be a PC game. But again, hardware is a concern. Time is a concern. So the thing that people can do is they can point to strong pockets of community activity, both online or maybe at live events. This may be an opportunity for some folks who are strong in the fighting games community to petition for games that we've never seen at an MLG event. It may be an opportunity for folks to get a game that they haven't competed in a genre we haven't run for a while back. Sports games, racing games, whatever it may be. So, I want to try and give representation to all the great genres. Rhythm gaming is something we're looking at. Racing could come into the fold. Sports games, obviously, we have a history there. But what I really want is I want to find out from the community what would they be excited about, not only to come out and participate in, but to watch if they're not going to participate in it. So, FIFA is something I get asked about a lot from folks who are in Europe. So we're literally going to create a list of everything we can think of. We're going to open it up to the community. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be a group of folks who, through their contribution to those discussions, are going to be pulled into the conversation a bit. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to try and make the best decision both for the competitors, the community, and for new folks who are going to be coming into this.
Speaking of all the random throwback titles that's coming up for the 2011 events, on the obviously new Major League Gaming website, which is quite nice, I must admit, on the Pro Circuit part of the website, it says there's a 2011 season preview. Could you enlighten everybody on what this could be, and if there will be a nice little release show party about where the next season events will take place at?
Well, thanks first off for the comments on the site. We appreciate it. It's still a work in progress. But we're going to be covering that. We're dialing in all the details, and then you're going to see, we've moved to doing more video content, in studio with things like the Old Spice Report. We'll be doing more of that. And our new office space actually has a studio built into it. So we'll be previewing this stuff both in article form and in show form. So in the new year, I don't want to give you a date as to when because it's not locked in yet, but we'll be putting out all the information well in advance. My goal is to release all the information for all the events at the same time. We're an event series. We've been working really hard. Actually, Adam Apicella has been working really hard to get that stuff locked in so we can do that for the first time in our history, come out with a complete announcement in terms of where we're going to be, what the dates are, what the hotels are, what the games are, and we're getting there. So that's one of the areas where you're going to see all that information come out on the new site.
So in a dream world, one might say, wouldn't it be nice to go back to Raleigh and have Gears of War at Raleigh where Epic is? You want to play a hot or cold game? Is that hot or cold?
That sounds like a genius idea.
One you might have thought of yourself.
No, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is like if you think about it, why can't we come up with these things thematically where every year that the Columbus event has X as a throwback, right? Well, why not? I think that's something we could work towards one day. I don't know that that's ideal, and the community will in the end determine whether or not that's the way that we should go. But with a situation like Raleigh, for example, or Seattle, if we were to go there, it makes a ton of sense to do something around an Epic game or to have a showcase for Epic. Raleigh next year could be a great opportunity for Epic to get in front of their most loyal and diehard fans. Will they? I don't know. Will we offer that up to them? Absolutely. It's just that's what these events are leaning towards becoming, is more of an experience to be shared by both the core, hardcore competitive player as well as the next two rings, which are the casual competitive and just the gamer in general. Sony is a partner with us who wants to put a lot of work into bringing new things to events and beta showcases and even alpha showcases. We're in talks with Microsoft to do more of that as well. So now, next up are the obvious folks, the folks that we have a history with, but from using their games. So I'd love to see stuff like that come into play.
All right, I've got a little bit of a two-parter for you here. A while back, we did an episode of the Losers Bracket where we kind of talked about what was to come in the next year, what ideas we had for the direction of the Combine. What are we looking at for the direction of the 2011 Combine? And then also, in that episode, I had mentioned a possibility of possibly doing something with WCG qualifiers, things of that nature. I know that you had been talking to Paul Brewer a while back. Anything ever come up with those talks? Any ideas of what's going to happen in the coming year? Are there any plans for the future of working with WCG for the 2011 season?
Okay, so good question. Two big parts to it. First part with the Combines is they will take a different shape next year. I think one of the things that we're looking at doing, which Adam has spoken about a little bit to replace some of the Combine activity, is our local grassroots land center initiative. We are doing an outreach program right now with a lot of land centers and looking at land centers and looking at that business and ways to strengthen the presence of competitive gaming on a local level. And it's easier for us to do it that way than to roll trucks. So the Combine, as you know it, will no longer exist. the activity, the purpose of the combine will be recrafted and will be driven online and most likely to select land centers around the country. Second part of the question, WCG. I am very interested working with WCG and figuring out a way for us to coexist. I think the days of us viewing one another as competitors is over. There have been some recent changes over there, which I'm not 100% comfortable speaking to. I'll let them talk about that. But I think, one of my goals the rest of this month and in early January is to get a lay of the land, speak with the folks at WCG, in particular back in Korea, get kind of a bird's eye view of what their plans are for North America and see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. My guess is that I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be. I think it's going to really come down to what their plans are for North America in 2011 and beyond in terms of determining what that relationship would look like.
For our audience that may not be aware, there's been some changes as far as the World Cyber Games, some key personalities. Paul Brewer is no longer with the World Cyber Games, and neither is Aaron. Aaron will be leaving the company at the end of the year, which we're coming up to. So there'll be some changes at the World Cyber Games, but we are excited, I think, to hear, Sundance, that you're talking to them. And I imagine that you're now probably talking to people directly in Korea, correct?
Yep, that's accurate.
So moving away from that and going into some of the website changes, I agree with Adam. Overall, they're good, but I'm sure I'm not the first person to mention this, but will I ever be able to search for a video and find one I want to watch?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah. What happened there? Was that you? What happened?
Okay, so there's our previous video platform was custom. It was built from the ground up internally, and there were issues with it. Yeah, no surprise to anybody who used it. So we crafted a partnership with Brightcove Networks to power our MLG.TV video network. So the ingestion process, is a slow and manual one. And the labeling process is even slower and more manual. So we will get there. All of our VOD archives will be loaded into the system and will be tagged and will be viewable on mobile phone as well as on the internet. We're getting started in January with that. It's going to take 100 monkeys with 100 keyboards, a little bit of time to get it done, but you got my guarantee that it will be a useful tool in the near future once again. Because right now, you're right, it may look good, but it's impossible to find anything unless you're looking for videos of Puckett.
All right. All right. So that the community just has to be patient. And for those of you out there who didn't quite understand what he's saying, if you can imagine every individual video has to be transferred over to a new system, that video has to be watched, and then the persons or people looking this have to decide what key tags need to go in that video, players' names, maybe organizations, hint, hint, other things like that should be easy to search for. So if I want to see a VVV player, maybe I could one day hope to type VVV and it would pull something up. Is that the kind of thing that you're doing there? Something along that magnitude?
To the letter.
Awesome. That's good to hear. So be patient. They're working on it. And speaking of working on it, game battles. That's a big undertaking. You're building that from the ground up, correct?
We are, we're rebuilding game battles. So you'll notice, with our new site, there's a new capstone site. The pro structure section looks different. Parts of it work really well, and then you click on game battles, and you're like, oh, okay, well, same old here. The game battles backend is incredibly complicated. It's a fantastic community. It provides a great service. But it's been a huge barrier to entry. So for us to make game battles more accessible to more folks, we actually began this quite a while ago, but we've been rebuilding it from the code level up. So next year, early next year, we're going to be launching a bunch of new services around social networking, first on the profile system, and then second in the spring, our entirely updated, revamped competition engine, complete with data hooks. So what data hooks are calls to and from video games that community members may or may not be playing for things such as auto score reporting, auto profile updating, all kinds of good stuff. So game battles right now, for the folks who use it and who are patient with it, thank you. But it's going to be far better experience by the time spring rolls around.
To highlight one thing, when you say data hooks, would I be able to know what a player's win-loss record is based on the actual game?
With games that are enabled, yes, you would.
Awesome. Now, there have been a lot of other sites that claim to have technology similar to this, especially what you and I have discussed before as far as betting sites, the kind of site where this is completely different from that, right?
Yeah, so what this is this is at the code level within the game. We talked about our Agora Games acquisition the last time we spoke, and you and I have spoken about it a few times. We actually, on the code level, we have an organization that we bought we acquired in August. I should say bought, it wasn't just that. Who we work with, and those guys are now part of our team. And Agora is just, this fantastic squad of people up in Troy, New York, who have a platform called Hydra. And their website is agoragames.com. And the reason I'm saying that is because folks should take a look, go to the URL, read through the white paper documentation. Agora's technology, Hydra, is embedded in a number of games right now. They power things like Guitar Hero. They've worked with Activision on the Call of Duty series, and there's many more games that it's going to be embedded in, and it's going to become something that you're going to see more and more. So when we rebuilt our site and rebuilt our profile system, of course, we looked at what we were doing with Agora and looked at linking the two. So the goal is to do more and more of that, and you will see that start to take shape next year.
That's awesome news on so many levels. That's really good to hear. Let's talk a little bit, since you're talking about partnerships and your partners, let's talk about the Mad Catz controller, because we talked about the subtle controversy, then it went quiet for a while. Can you give us an update on what's going on with the MLG Mad Catz controller?
Absolutely. So we signed that deal, and everybody started to assume that they were going to be forced to play with the Mad Catz controller, and it was going to be the same quality as what they had gotten from their mom, from the discount aisle a few years ago. So we've worked with them really closely and given them a list of features. And interestingly, it's a similar list that we gave to another group who's just recently released a controller. But this one actually is not going to be to our specifications. So it's looking really good. What I can say is that we're in the early stages of product development, meaning we'll start to get some models out there and some molds, and we're going to get a small group of alpha testers together to take a look at the form of it and see what they think. And my goal is to selectively put this in the hands of some folks early in the new year to take a look at and to test with us. But we're taking this from the high-end approach. We're putting the best components possible into it. Customization is going to be something that's going to be part of it. Component-based customization, not manual ratchets or spring-based things that can wear out. And replaceable components where over time, should they start to wear, you'll be able to replace those components rather than having to go buy a new controller. So I think hopefully folks will like it. It's not going to be required equipment. Our hope and our goal is that we can release something that to the discerning competitor will stand up and work. And now we are also, and this is something that people have asked about, it's going to be the same form factor for both PS3 and Xbox 360. So in terms of shape, they'll be the same. It won't be a controller that goes from one to the other, but they will feel very similar and they will operate in a very similar manner.
That brings up one question. I don't know if you would have the answer today, but some people have asked, can you...
the Xbox controller on PS3?
Yes.
I'm looking into it. I don't have an answer. I don't see why it would be a problem. I think that it will be fine. Mad Catz has been nice enough to offer us a piece of software that will allow us to potentially do gate checks on controllers to make sure they haven't been modified in a way we don't like. Assuming we can get to a scenario where we feel like it's okay and it's still a level playing field, I would assume the answer would be yes. But again, that's something that the league is going to look into when we get a little bit further along, assuming we run a game on the PS3.
Assuming that you run a game on the PS3, of course. So we have pretty much 3 titles, not certain on Black Ops. Will there be 4 titles or 3 titles next year through the whole season? Can you tell us that?
My plan right now is for there to be 3 titles. If there is an issue with getting the third one on, that would be a real shame. But I would be stuck in a scenario where I'd have to try and figure out what the replacement for that third title would be, or if I was going to run things with the throwback tournaments a little bit differently at each stop. So right now we're looking at 3. I'll probably get in trouble for telling you that because I don't think I'm supposed to say that to anybody yet, but you guys get the scoop.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Well, I ask it because something you and I have talked about before and something that I really want to address. I've always had a deep love for the Brawl community, and I've often talking to them about will it ever come back on the MLG Pro circuit, and I don't know if I've necessarily been able to adequately express to them how what happened with Mewtwo King, prize splitting, is really almost a deal breaker. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you could shed some light on, after that came to light, what decisions were you almost forced to make? What's your position on this?
People don't understand this, but if I knowingly stand by and allow a community which is admittedly behave in a certain manner, which is unfair and creates a tournament environment which is essentially corrupt, I'm legally, I'm basically exposing myself to litigation, number one. Number two, as a person, I find it revolting that people would essentially defile competition by creating side agreements and off agreements. And, the claim can be made that it happens in other games, it happens in other sports. I don't want to hear it. The fact is that it was admitted to. We had a digital paper trail of it. So don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Smash. I have been. I have a 7-year-old son. We used to play Smash together quite a bit.
Well, wait, you say used to play?
Yeah, we used to play, and this is one of the things where people say, well, maybe it's a generational thing, but I don't buy that. So my 7-year-old son, who has been to events, who the first time ever playing Smash was with Strong Side at our event in Jersey City when he was a little kid. And you have to understand, he was at our first event in a stroller as an infant. So he's been there for the duration. I come back and I tell him, he's like, you want to play Smash? I said, you know what? Not today, buddy. I'm sorry. And he's like, why? And I explained to him the scenario about how I had this really difficult decision to make because players who were the best players had made an agreement, and it basically had made our event a joke. It had, taken away the integrity of the event. And he said, you know what, Dad? Never mind. I don't want to play it. In fact, we can sell it back to GameStop. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, that's, I always wanted to play it and be like those guys, and I liked watching them, but that's not cool. That's my 7-year-old son. So for a community not to get it and say that's just the way it is, I can't accept that. I just don't think that, you'll be seeing us do anything in an extended manner with that game. It's not pro circuit worthy. Is it worthy of one of these throwback events? We'll have to see. But it's not going to be on the pro circuit. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I've made it clear to our Brawl division, and one of the reasons people say, can you fight for it? My answer has always been no, I can't. I can't because it's just not acceptable. And, unfortunately, a lot of the Brawl community, I don't think quite understands, and maybe it's unfair to say the Brawl community. I think human nature as a whole, people can get comfortable or believe that just because something is some way or it's been accepted, it's okay. I think in the direction that I've heard you speak about, the pro circuit, you want the titles and the communities that are going to be represented on main stage to be the very best in competitive gaming, and clearly that practice isn't going to fit anywhere near that.
Look, it's what we do is already, it's a difficult universe to be someone who operates a competitive gaming league and a competitive gaming business in general. When stuff like that happens and it gets to folks that we're maybe talking to about a sponsorship agreement, and if I can't say to them, you know what, yes, you're right, that did happen and we found out about it and I shut it down, it makes me look like a joker. So it's not something that we'll ever be okay with. It's not something that we'll ever be able to look at and say, no big deal, lesson learned. It's something that as long as there's any issue or any doubt, we're going to have real problems.
Well, to all of you brawlers out there who are listening, obviously you've heard it from Sundance himself, and Brawl will not be back on the pro circuit next year, and possibly come back as a one-off event if all the forces align properly, so to speak.
Yeah. And the one thing that I also want to say, though, is that even without this incident, there would have been issues in terms of getting it back. We saw less than stellar attendance. We saw folks choosing regional grassroots tournaments over the pro circuit, which is fine. I don't hold that against anybody, but from a business standpoint, and remember, I am running a business. People sometimes forget this or act like it's not. It's just, me doing what I want to do. The fact of it is that even without this coming to light, it probably would have been difficult to get Smash back onto the circuit due to a lack of support from Nintendo folks, but we knew that. And number two, the audience numbers being hit or miss and not really being what we had hoped for. There were strong events, but there were also weak events. So then add on to that the fiasco, and that was kind of dead on arrival when it came up for discussion.
Next thing I want to talk about is another tweet of yours that has caused a lot of conversation, a lot of debate, something that I've had debates with my own staff on, and that is you asked if it would be possible to have a female league would people go about it? Can you start, because you said it was something you felt that you could be able to do. Can you talk about sort of the genesis of the idea, what made you throw it out on Twitter, and what the feedback you've gotten so far is?
Well, I just, it's always been something that we've seen more girls at our events, and girls, I don't want to say if there's a glass ceiling, but haven't been too many mixed teams that have seen a lot of success. But, again, that's not, it's a difference of preparation, of accessibility, all sorts of things. So, in conversation one day, again, with a brand, I was asked, would there be an opportunity for us to work, around something focusing towards women, young women? And, remember, when I say brand, it's somebody who's obviously considering writing a check, but they've got a targeted demographic that they want to reach for that money. And they see us as potentially being an interesting way to pass through and reach that audience. So, my answer to them was, do you follow me on Twitter? And they said, well, why? I said, well, because I'm going to probably start a little bit of a shitstorm, but I'm going to ask the question. I did. Of course, it was from, folks saying, yes, absolutely, to no, get real. Even the Frag Dolls chimed in. And, the fact of it is that it wasn't so cut and dried. Even though folks on the no side of it kind of responded as if it was. I got a lot of people who messaged me back saying, I'd do that. I'd be into it. So I don't think you're going to see a female division. I mean, I think, some other interesting ideas came out, like just around a second tier of competition for folks who just want to get assimilated and see what this is all about. Some folks asked for an over 30, 35 league, an old folks league. So I think it's the big issue for us right now is that the size of the audience is such that it probably doesn't make too much sense to fracture it out at the moment. But, I have meetings with this brand again coming in the new year, and maybe something that we do around female competitive gamers. But I don't think you'll see a quote unquote league of their own. But you may see some things that are more targeted towards female gamers.
Yeah, I want to point out to you, I'll probably send you some literature, but there's a professor out at the University of Toronto. His name is Jay Pratt, and he's a brain researcher, and he's done a lot of work on sort of gender differences neurologically, specifically in spatial cognition. And what's been really cool is that men generally always test significantly better than women when it comes to spatial cognition. But Pratt decided that he would bring women into a gaming environment and have them train and play on action video games, so first-person shooters, and the gender difference nearly disappeared, but it was still there. So being a number guy started crunching out, and the result of this is almost the same that it is in professional sports, in that at the very top of the competition, having a mixed group I don't think will work, because men still start out with the greater baseline ability in spatial cognition, and people can argue this, but this is just what the research says. What I want to see is I'd like to be able to identify the best women. I think that female gamers as a whole, in getting their own league, and it doesn't have to be a large one, it allows them to become assimilated in the culture, become role models, identify the top talent. I think a large concern of a lot of people has been that, you have some members of the community or personalities, but they're not really talent. And wouldn't it be awesome that there's an opportunity for some of this female talent to shed, in a way, their gender by being in an all-female league and be able to raise awareness of their talent by being the best of that league? I think that's what some people at least would argue would be a really important reason to have female gamers have at least their own space. Doesn't have to be a major league, but somewhere down the road, to identify that top talent, start to get them assimilated in the culture, and in many ways become leaders and role models for female gamers.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that, there's a gentleman, Paul Fitz, who worked in psychology back in the 50s and 60s, and he developed this thing called Fitz Law, and it's basically about the interaction, like reflex time, but in interaction with a computer is where it really started using a pointing device. And I think one of the things that came out in some of the reading that I did around that was just that even in the way that men and women navigate physical spaces in the real world, that, it's either landmark driven or time and location driven, meaning that you a certain amount, go 5 minutes down this road and then turn left, as opposed to go down this road until you see the church and turn left. So there's just real differences. And so, I think that stuff is fascinating, but at the end of the day, when I was having this conversation, it wasn't even about that extra layer of it. It was just, hey, we want to know if chicks like gaming, and and these women that I was talking to were just like, we all play, and we know about the frag dolls, we know about these clans, and stuff. Like, the fact of it is that they want to compete on the same stage. So if there's something that can be supplemental to that, sure, but I don't think that the time is right yet. But again, there aren't that many mixed competitive leagues at a high level where that's the focal point. Like mixed tennis, for example, is not the primary event. It's something that's done as well as the primary event. Maybe that's something that you'll see us do. I don't know yet, but for now, it's going to be business as usual in that regard.
Final question, because I know you're busy. Partners for next year, who's carrying over? Anyone new that you can hint or talk at? What sponsors will carry over into next year?
So our policy is not to comment on sponsors until we make our official announcement. I will say this, there have been some additions to the roster. There's some folks who are taking different approaches with us next year, and I will, it's just as soon as we get into the final negotiation stage and get the okay from some of these new brands, I'll be happy to let you guys know. But I can say this, overall from a sponsor health position year over year, I feel very good about where we stand. I feel very good about the initiative that we've got in place, and I can't wait to introduce some of the new brands that are coming into our mix and our fold. Again, it's a testament to the fact that what we're doing is making an impact. Just as an extended answer, because how I like to hear my own voice, anybody listening to this, whether you're a VVV community member or not, I would ask that you tell people about this activity. Tell people when we release the season schedule, say, hey, tell people to come check it out. Tell people that it's fun, even if you're not playing in a team event or if you're just curious. One of the things that we've got ahead of us for next year is, a revamped event experience, which is going to be a lot of fun for folks. And the key to us is to grow the audience. These brands are taking notice of you guys, and they're investing more money in you guys and gals. So what you need to do is you need to help us spread the word. It looks like the NFL and the NBA may go into labor stoppage situations in the near future. The NFL is almost a foregone conclusion, according to a lot of folks. That's going to be a great opportunity for us. I mean, it's going to be boring for a lot of people on Sundays with no football. Maybe we can create something where, we can all get together and we can make use of that time. I just ask folks to continue to spread the word, continue to get more folks into the fold, and represent with class and dignity. Win with class, lose with class. Most of all, hold your head up, shake hands, and all that stuff that we preach, because at the end of the day, the community is what makes all this great.
Sundance, I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to wish you and your family a healthy and happy holidays. We are very excited for 2011, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, me too. Really appreciate it. And again, I want to thank all the great folks from VVV. I think it's fantastic to be working together and to be talking with you guys on a regular basis, because, again, this is what it's about, and I appreciate your support.
So that was a pretty amazing interview. I'm really glad we got the chance to bring Sundance back on the show. And after everything I've just heard, I have to admit I'm really excited about the 2011 season. The idea of having regional events where there's certain games that are in certain towns, the way the titles are shaping up, I think this is going to be a really great year for MLG.
And, in conjunction with that, it's also going to be a great year for VV Gaming. I want to sort of let everybody know we're going to be doing some exciting things this year. We're going to be launching a premier member category for some of our most dedicated members, where their Xbox Live membership is going to be paid for. They're going to get a lot of other perks that come in the form of Microsoft points and access to betas and all kinds of other things. So we're really excited about that. Also, I think every gamer, whether you're in VV Gaming or not, I think Sundance made a really good point, and that is to tell everybody and come to events. Bring your friends, bring non-gamers, bring people to MLG events. For those of you out there who are gamers, who are without a home, I want to invite you to come explore VV Gaming. We probably have 3 years' worth of pictures of our attendance at various events, and many of you I know sometimes sit on the fence, or you don't want to go to an event alone. VV Gaming isn't for everyone. We have a pretty difficult process to get in. It takes at least 2 months. You have to be active on Facebook and Twitter. We only accept about 12% of the applicants. But a lot of you, I don't want to discourage you from attempting to join. And to those of you who don't like VV Gaming or you don't like me, there'll be plenty of time to sort of throw hate around. But I encourage all of you to spread the word about this particular podcast, because I think 2011 could be a huge year for North American competitive gaming. And I think, hopefully with what you've heard in this show, confidence that Sundance's vision is something that benefits all competitive gaming. So I want to encourage any of you out there that are hesitant about getting involved in a community or exploring competitive gaming deeper maybe. I think now's a great time to do that. So please look into it. I think, gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the show.
Yes, that it does. Big thanks to the sponsors of VUV Gaming, SteelSeries, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com, GamerLogos.net, and of course, Custom Ink. Thanks to the entire competitive gaming community for their feedback and support. We absolutely adore you guys. You are the reason we continue to do this, and we really do want you guys, if you get the chance, to spread this episode around, because Sundance gave out a lot of really great information this episode, so please help him out. Help MLG out and spread this news around, because 2011 is looking to be a great year. Be sure to stop by our podcast homepage at vvgaming.podbean.com. Also, you can subscribe to us on iTunes or Zune Marketplace. Just search for VV Gaming. There you'll find both of our shows, Directional Influence, which is our Smash Bros podcast, and of course the Losers Bracket, which you're currently listening to right now. Feel free to email us at thelosersbracket@vv-gaming.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. There, we're simply known as Losers Bracket.
Also, everybody, wish you a Merry Christmas. Have a happy, safe holidays. I also know last week we said we would talk about the Battle Empire interview, but with Sundance coming on to the show, that will be put on hold until next week.
That's right. Next week, we will go into Battle Empire. BV Jolly will be joining us, as well as Craft Dinner, who has been part of the beta and can give us his hands-on experience. I also want to wish everyone a happy holiday. Enjoy your time. Don't eat too much. And take some time off and have fun gaming. Merry Christmas, everyone.
We'll see you next week, everybody. Happy holidays.